You'll take the stairs, Vernon said, tapping his polished watch. The morning staff meeting had just ended, and I stood alone with him and 4 other team leaders near the elevator bank. Elevator access is restricted during the CEO summit. Security protocol. My arms were full of presentation boards for the executive lunch. The same lunch I'd spent 3 nights preparing but wouldn't be attending. The materials need to be on 65 in 15 minutes, I replied, glancing at the elevator where the others waited. Vernon's thin lips curved upward. Then I suggest you start climbing, Rook. Not Rookie. Not my actual name, Rookmini. Just Rook, like the chess piece. Expendable. Limited in movement. I've got 30 pounds of presentation materials, I said. He shrugged. Should have thought about that before spending company money on foam boards instead of doing digital presentations like everyone else. The boards were his explicit request. I had the email to prove it. Maybe one of us could help carry, Lena started, but Vernon cut her off. Everyone's needed at the summit. Rook can handle it. He turned to me. Consider it exercise. You need to fill the gap while we attend the executive lunch. Damon snickered. Eden and Parker exchanged glances. Lena studied her shoes. The steel elevator doors parted. They stepped inside. 65 floors, Vernon called as the doors closed. Better hurry. I stood frozen, clutching the presentation boards, hearing something crack inside me. Not my resolve. Something else. Something that had been bending for 5 years. The stairwell door felt impossibly heavy. Inside, concrete steps spiraled upward. Emergency lights casting everything in sickly yellow. I set down the boards and pulled out my phone. Artie, it's happening, I said to my lawyer. Make the call. Are you certain? His voice echoed in the empty stairwell. Once we move, I'm certain. Execute as planned. I tucked my phone away, picked up the boards, and began climbing. By the 3rd floor, my calves burned. By the 7th, my breathing grew labored. At floor 12, I set everything down and peeled off my jacket. 23 minutes later, I pushed through the door to floor 30. Halfway there, sweat plastered my blouse to my back. My fingers were raw from gripping the boards. I remembered my first day at Zencor Technologies 5 years ago. Fresh from college, portfolio bulging with ideas, heart full of ambition. Your designs have potential, Vernon had said during my interview. Rough, unpolished, but we can work with that. For 3 years, I'd worked overtime, weekends, holidays, designs that won company awards, with Vernon's name attached. Campaigns that doubled client retention, credit given to Damon or Eden. My ideas, voiced in meetings, ignored until repeated by Parker, minutes later. Floor 42. My legs trembled. The maintenance manager passed me, concern, etching his weathered face. Rookmini, why are you in the stairwell? There's a fire safety inspection scheduled. Following orders, I managed between breaths. He shook his head. Let me help you with those. I've got it, Hector. But thank you. Suit yourself. But you shouldn't be here today of all days. If only he knew I'd signed his paycheck since Tuesday. Floor 57. My phone buzzed. Artie, it's done, he said. Documents delivered. The board is reviewing them now. I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes. Any pushback? None. Property transfer appear legitimate because it is, and they're stunned, of course. 8 more floors. I forced myself upward, each step a testament to 5 years of swallowed pride, of team dinners where I drank water while they ordered bottles of wine, of watching colleagues who spoke up disappear overnight. 5 years of living in a studio apartment and driving a 15-year-old car while funneling every dollar of my inheritance into anonymous shell companies that slowly, methodically purchased shares of the building that housed Zencor Technologies. Floor 65. I pushed through the final door. Presentation boards clutched against my chest. The receptionist jumped to her feet. You can't go in there, she stammered. The board is in emergency session. Through the glass walls, I saw them. Vernon, Damon, Eden, Parker, Lena, seated around the conference table with the executive team. The CEO stood at the head, holding papers, his face ashen. I walked past the receptionist, through the double doors, into stunned silence. What are you doing here? Vernon hissed. I told you to take the stairs, I finished, setting down the boards. So I did. 65 floors. The CEO cleared his throat. Miss Kapoor, perhaps you could wait outside. We're dealing with an urgent matter. The building sale, I said, and the eviction notice. Vernon's eyes narrowed. How do you know about that? I stepped forward, extending my hand to the CEO. The papers, please. Confusion flickered across his face, but he handed them over. I scanned the document, the eviction notice I'd instructed Artie to deliver that morning. 5 years of planning, of saving, of secretly acquiring the building through a dozen different investment vehicles, all culminating in this moment. I looked up at their bewildered faces. The elevator wasn't restricted today, I said. I checked with maintenance on my way up. Vernon's face reddened. This is inappropriate. Get out before I call security. That would be interesting, I replied, since they work for me now. The room went still. I set the eviction notice on the table, smoothing its corners. 2 years ago, I suggested we buy this building instead of renting. You said I should stick to arranging lunch orders and leave real business to the adults. I turned to the CEO. You asked who purchased the building. The answer is Kapoor Holdings. I paused. My company. Vernon laughed, a brittle sound. That's impossible. You can barely afford your bus pass. You assumed that because I let you. The modest clothes, the packed lunches, the ancient car, all carefully cultivated. Meanwhile, my inheritance was working for me, buying this building piece by piece while you were buying designer watches. If you're listening to this story and feeling that rush of satisfaction, that tingle of finally justice is coming, take a second to tap that like button. Follow this channel for more stories of long-awaited reckonings. I promise, what happens next will leave you speechless. Drop a comment with what you think Vernon deserves. I'm Rukmini Kapoor, first-generation American, daughter of immigrants who taught me patience and perseverance, graduate of State College, not an Ivy League, always the hardest worker in the room, never the most recognized. For 5 years, I watched Vernon and his inner circle take credit for my work. My redesign of the client portal, presented as Damon's brainchild, my marketing strategy that increased revenue by 40%, suddenly, Eden's brilliant insight. My suggestions in meetings, dismissed, until Parker repeated them minutes later. This is absurd, Vernon spluttered. She's delusional. The CEO held up a hand. The paperwork appears legitimate. Copper Holdings completed the purchase yesterday. Vernon's face drained of color. There must be some mistake. No mistake, I said. The building is mine, and Zencor Technologies has 30 days to vacate. Lena stood, her chair scraping against the floor. Rukmini, can we talk about this? Maybe reach an understanding? Lena, who had watched in silence for 5 years, who knew what was happening but never intervened, who once whispered, I'm sorry, after a particularly brutal meeting but did nothing to help. You have 30 days, I repeated. I suggest you start packing. The CEO cleared his throat. Perhaps we could negotiate a lease. The space has already been promised to new tenants. A lie, but they didn't know that. Vernon surged to his feet. You ungrateful little... Choose your next words carefully, I interrupted. They might be the last you speak as an employee of Zencor. The room erupted in voices, protests, questions, threats. I remained standing, silent, watching their comfortable world crumble around them. Security arrived, the same team that now reported to me. The CEO raised his hands, calling for calm. Everyone, please. Let's take a breath. He turned to me. Miss Kapoor, surely we can come to some arrangement. Zencor has been in this building for 15 years. 14 years and 7 months, I corrected. I've documented every day. Vernon's eyes burned with hatred. You planned this. All this time, pretending to be a team player. I was a team player. You just didn't value my team. I walked to the window, looking out over the city. Do you know what it's like, Vernon? To have your work stolen day after day? To watch others advance on your ideas while you stay behind? That's business, he spat. If you can't handle it, I handled it perfectly, I said, turning back to face them. I played the long game while you focused on quarterly bonuses. The CEO stepped between us. What do you want, Miss Kapoor? What did I want? Revenge, yes. But something else too. Something that had been forming in my mind as I climbed those 65 floors. Step by painful step. I want. The conference room doors burst open. A security guard entered, his expression grim. Miss Kapoor, there's a situation downstairs. The fire safety inspector found critical violations. He's threatening to shut down the building immediately. Vernon smiled, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Not even owner for a day and already failing. I felt the weight of all eyes on me. This wasn't part of the plan. The building inspection wasn't supposed to happen until next week. Had I miscalculated? Would my moment of triumph collapse before it had truly begun? The CEO looked at me with newfound doubt. Vernon's smile widened. The others exchanged glances, sensing a shift in power. The inspector insists on speaking with the building owner immediately, the guard continued. He says it's urgent. I straightened my sweat-soaked blouse, acutely aware of my disheveled appearance after climbing 65 floors. Against their polished exteriors, I looked exactly as they'd always seen me, struggling, inadequate, out of place. "Tell him I'll be right down," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. As I moved toward the door, Vernon stepped into my path. "Looks like your little power play just crashed and burned," he whispered. "Amateur." I met his gaze. "We'll see who's still standing when this is over." The security guard held the door as I walked out, leaving behind a room of executives wondering if they'd witnessed my greatest triumph or most spectacular failure. And I wondered the same thing myself. The elevator ride down felt like descending into uncertainty. Just minutes ago, I'd revealed myself as the new owner, watching shock ripple across faces that had dismissed me for years. Now, one unexpected inspection threatened everything. Hector waited in the lobby with a man in a navy uniform holding a clipboard. "Miss Kapoor," Hector said, relief evident in his voice. "This is Inspector Neil. He's found several issues during today's fire safety check." Neil frowned, tapping his clipboard. "The sprinkler system on floors 30 through 42 isn't up to code, and 3 emergency exits are blocked with storage items. I can't allow normal operations until these are addressed." My heart sank. The building's previous management company had assured me all systems were compliant. Another lie. "How quickly can we resolve this?" I asked. "The blocked exits can be cleared immediately. The sprinkler system will take at least 3 days of work." 3 days. 3 days of business disruption just as I was establishing authority. "We can't shut down," I said. "There are 12 companies operating in this building." Neil's expression hardened. "Then I suggest you start evacuation procedures." The elevator dinged behind me. Vernon and the CEO emerged, both wearing carefully constructed expressions of concern that didn't quite hide their satisfaction at my predicament. "Problem?" Vernon asked innocently. I turned to Hector. "Get a crew to clear those exits immediately. Then call Ajax Fire Systems. Tell them we need emergency service, whatever the cost." Hector nodded and hurried away. "Inspector," I said, "if we clear the exits and post fire wardens on the affected floors until repairs begin tomorrow morning, would that satisfy immediate safety requirements?" Neil considered this. "I'd need to see the exits cleared personally, and you'd need 1 warden per floor, with hourly fire watch rounds documented." "Done," I said. Vernon stepped forward. "This seems like an extensive building management issue. Perhaps Zencor should reconsider its eviction given these circumstances." The CEO nodded. "We could delay our departure, help manage this transition. For a reasonable accommodation on rent, of course." Their transparent attempt to leverage my crisis made something harden inside me. 5 years of watching them take advantage of every weakness, every vulnerability. "Not this time. Your offer is noted," I replied coolly. "Inspector Neil, please give me 30 minutes to arrange the fire wardens and begin clearing the exits." As Neil stepped away to make a call, Vernon moved closer. "Buying a building doesn't make you capable of running it," he murmured. "You're already failing. Imagine how this looks to your new tenants." I met his gaze. "I climbed 65 floors today because you thought it would break me. What makes you think this will?" "I climbed." His smile never reached his eyes. "Because climbing stairs just requires stubborn stupidity. This requires actual business acumen." The CEO cleared his throat. "We're simply offering assistance during a difficult transition." While attempting to negotiate under duress, I replied, "Not exactly the ethical leadership Zencor claims in its mission statement." Before either could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Artie. "Don't panic. I'm 5 minutes away with help." Hope flickered. Artie had never let me down. I turned back to Inspector Neil. "I need to coordinate the fire wardens. Excuse me." For the next 20 minutes, I moved through the building with purpose, instructing security to clear the blocked exits, contacting office managers on the affected floors. My clothes still clung to me with sweat from the 65-floor climb, but I projected calm authority. When Artie arrived, he wasn't alone. With him was a woman in a tailored suit, carrying a tablet. "Rukmini, this is Tara Mendez, former fire marshal, now private safety consultant." Tara nodded briskly. Artie explained the situation. "Let me see the inspection report." After reviewing Neil's findings, she tapped rapidly on her tablet. "These issues are real, but there's an alternative compliance pathway under City Code 5.7b that allows for a 72-hour remediation period with enhanced monitoring. I've worked with Neil before. Let me talk to him." 20 minutes later, we had a solution. The exits were being cleared, fire wardens assigned, and Ajax Fire Systems would begin work at 6 a.m. tomorrow. the building could remain operational. Neil signed off on the revised compliance plan. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon to check progress. As he left, I turned to find Vernon watching from across the lobby. His expression unreadable. Looks like you found a temporary band-aid, he said. But running a building is different from making pretty presentations. This is just the beginning of your problems. Perhaps, I agreed, but I've always been good at solving problems, especially those created by others. His eyes narrowed. The board meeting resumes in 30 minutes. Your little stunt interrupted important business. My ownership of this building is not a stunt. We'll see. He checked his watch. 30 minutes. Unless you need more time to clean up. You look disheveled. After he walked away, Artie touched my arm. You okay? I nodded. I need to change before I go back up there. You have clothes here? Emergency bag in my desk. I've learned to be prepared. 10 minutes later, I emerged from the bathroom in fresh clothes, my hair smoothed back, face washed, the climb's evidence erased, except for the ache in my muscles. Artie waited outside. You don't have to go back up there today. We've made our point. If I don't return, they'll see it as weakness, I said. Besides, there's more to do. The revenge part, he said quietly. I gave him a sharp look. The business part. Rukmini, I've known you since college. This isn't just business. It started as business, I corrected. An investment opportunity they were too arrogant to see. And now? I thought about Vernon's smug face when he ordered me to climb 65 floors. About 5 years of stolen ideas and credit given to others. About watching qualified people pushed out because they challenged the comfortable hierarchy. Now it's justice. When I re-entered the conference room on floor 65, conversations halted. The executive team had reassembled, papers spread across the table. Vernon sat at the CEO's right hand, whispering something that made the older man frown. Miss Kapoor, the CEO said formally. I understand you've resolved the inspection issue. For now, Vernon added. I took the empty chair at the far end of the table. Yes, work begins tomorrow morning. Good, the CEO said. Now, regarding our situation, our legal team has reviewed the ownership documents. The transfer appears legitimate. It is legitimate, I stated. Nevertheless, we believe there's room for negotiation. Zencor has been the anchor tenant in this building for nearly 15 years. Our sudden eviction would cause significant disruption. I looked around the table at the faces watching me. Some curious, some hostile, some calculating. For 5 years, I'd sat in meetings like this, offering ideas that were ignored or stolen. Today, they waited for my response. Significant disruption, I repeated. Like being told to climb 65 floors with presentation materials because the elevator is restricted when it isn't. Vernon stiffened. The CEO looked confused. I'm not sure what you're referring to, he said. Ask your team leaders, I suggested. Ask them how they treat those beneath them in the hierarchy. Eden shifted uncomfortably. Parker studied his hands. Damon's jaw tightened. Miss Kapoor, the CEO continued. Whatever personal grievances you may have, this isn't personal, I interrupted. It's structural. The way Zencor operates, taking credit from those below, promoting based on relationships rather than results, creating a culture of fear rather than innovation. These are business problems that have created business consequences. And those consequences include you buying our building to evict us? The CEO's voice hardened. That seems rather personal. I bought this building because it was undervalued. The previous owners neglected necessary updates, leading to today's inspection issues. They were willing to sell at below market rate to avoid the coming maintenance costs. I leaned forward. I saw value where others saw only problems. Isn't that what good business people do? Vernon snorted. You saw an opportunity for revenge. Vernon, the CEO warned. No, let's be honest here, Vernon continued. She's been planning this for years. Waiting, watching, looking for weakness. That's not business. That's obsession. I smiled. If recognizing an undervalued asset and having the patience to acquire it properly is obsession, then yes, I'm guilty. The CEO sighed. Regardless of motivation, we're here now. What would it take for Zencor to remain in the building? This was the moment I'd rehearsed countless times in my mind during those 5 years. The moment of leverage, of power. What did I want? Revenge, certainly, but something else too. I'm willing to offer Zencor a new lease agreement, I said. Hope flickered across their faces. With conditions, I added. The CEO nodded cautiously. Which are? First, a complete reorganization of leadership. I looked directly at Vernon. Some people will need to leave. Vernon's face flushed. This is outrageous. Second, a review of all promotions and project attributions for the past 5 years, with appropriate corrections and compensations. Eden paled. Damon's knuckles whitened around his pen. Third, implementation of new policies that protect intellectual property and ensure proper credit. The CEO frowned. You're asking for unprecedented influence over our internal operations. I'm offering conditions for a new lease. You're free to relocate. In 30 days? Impossible. We'd lose millions. I shrugged. Business involves risk. Vernon slammed his hand on the table. This is blackmail. This is negotiation, I corrected. Something you taught me, Vernon. Always negotiate from a position of strength. Isn't that what you told the team? Right before you took my client presentation and put your name on it? The room went silent. The CEO looked between us. Is that true, Vernon? Before he could answer, the conference room door opened. A woman in an expensive suit entered, followed by 2 men carrying bankers' boxes. I apologize for the interruption, she said smoothly. I'm Diana Reynolds, from Sterling Partners. The CEO stood. Diana, we weren't expecting you until next week. She smiled tightly. Events have accelerated our timeline. May I speak with you privately? As they stepped outside, Vernon leaned toward me. What have you done? I raised an eyebrow. I don't know what you mean. Sterling Partners is evaluating us for acquisition. You knew that, did I? His eyes widened with realization. You told them about the building situation. The door reopened. The CEO returned, his face ashen. Diana remained in the doorway, watching. Sterling Partners is pausing acquisition talks, he announced. They have concerns about our stability given the real estate situation. All eyes turned to me. Vernon's voice was barely controlled. You just cost this company millions in valuation. All for what? Because you had to climb some stairs? Because you didn't get enough gold stars? I stood slowly, feeling the ache in my legs from those 65 floors. No, Vernon. Because you and others like you built a company culture that rewards the wrong things, that steals rather than creates, that climbs by pushing others down. I walked to the window, looking out at the city below. I didn't just buy a building. I bought time to decide what happens next. The room behind me erupted in urgent whispers. Through the glass reflection, I watched the CEO pull Vernon aside, their conversation intense and pointed. This wasn't over, not even close. The real revenge was just beginning to take shape, transforming from a 5-year dream into concrete reality. And as I turned back to face them, I saw something I'd waited years to see. Fear in Vernon's eyes. The next morning, I arrived at 7 a.m., watching Ajax Fire Systems technicians install the upgraded sprinklers. My muscles still burned from yesterday's climb, each step a reminder of Vernon's casual cruelty, but also of my triumph. Everything on schedule? I asked Hector. Yes, Miss Kapoor. The work should be completed by tomorrow evening. He hesitated. The Zencor team has been asking questions. They're nervous. Let them be, I said, checking my watch. Their all-hands meeting starts in an hour. After the chaos of yesterday's revelations, the CEO had called a company-wide meeting to address rumors spreading through Zencor. I hadn't been invited, of course, but I didn't need an invitation to attend events in my own building. At 7:55, I stood in the service corridor outside Zencor's main conference space, listening to the murmur of hundreds of employees. A text from my source inside confirmed the executive team had arrived. I straightened my blazer, took a deep breath, and pushed through the door. The room fell silent as I walked toward the stage where the CEO stood at the podium. Vernon and the other team leaders sat in a row behind him, their expressions ranging from surprise to outright hostility. Miss Kapoor, the CEO said, recovering quickly, this is a private company meeting. I'm aware, I replied, my voice carrying through the silent room. But since you're discussing the future of your tenancy in my building, I thought I should participate. Whispers erupted across the room. Many employees were hearing confirmation of the rumors for the first time. That's not necessary, the CEO said firmly. We'll continue our discussions through proper channels. Like the proper channels Vernon used yesterday when he forced me to climb 65 floors with presentation materials, by lying about elevator restrictions. More whispers. Vernon leaned forward, whispering urgently to the CEO, who frowned. That's an internal matter, the CEO replied. Is it? I stepped closer to the podium. Because it happened in my building, using my stairwells, which violates safety protocols during a fire system inspection. Inspector Neal was quite concerned when I told him. Vernon stood abruptly. This is inappropriate. Security. Won't be removing me, I finished. They report to building management now. For 5 years, I'd watched Zenkor's leadership manipulate information, control narratives, silence dissent. Today, I was changing that dynamic. I turned to face the employees. Many of you don't know me. I've worked at Zenkor for 5 years in the design department. Yesterday, I revealed that I own this building and have issued an eviction notice to the company. The room erupted with voices. The CEO raised his hands. Everyone, please, we're handling this situation. Are you? I asked. Because your employees deserve to know that Sterling Partners has paused acquisition talks, that your leadership team is scrambling to find new office space, that jobs may be at risk. That's enough, Vernon shouted, moving toward me. I stood my ground. The truth is uncomfortable, isn't it, Vernon? Especially when you can't control it. The CEO stepped between us. Miss Kapoor, I understand you have grievances, but this approach isn't productive. I disagree. For 5 years, I've watched talented people leave this company because their work was stolen, their contributions minimized, their growth stunted by leaders who care more about protecting their positions than building something valuable. I gestured toward the audience. How many of you have had your ideas dismissed in meetings, only to see them presented by someone else later? How many have watched credit for your work go to others? How many have stayed silent because speaking up meant risking your job? Uncomfortable glances spread through the crowd. A few hands tentatively raised. This isn't just about me, I continued. It's about a system that rewards the wrong behaviors, that punishes innovation unless it comes from the right people. Vernon pushed past the CEO. You're just bitter because you couldn't cut it, because you weren't good enough. A voice called from the audience. That's not true. We all turned. Nisha from accounting stood, her hands shaking but her voice steady. Rukmini redesigned our entire client portal last year. I sat next to her while she worked on it for months. Then suddenly, it was presented as Damon's project. Another person stood, then another. Stories poured out, projects reassigned, credits stolen, bullying disguised as feedback. The CEO's face darkened as he glanced between the speakers and his leadership team. For perhaps the first time, he was seeing the reality beneath the polished presentations. Vernon's face had turned an alarming shade of red. This is a coordinated attack. She's manipulating you all. Like you manipulated performance reviews? Someone called out. Like you manipulated client relationships? The room was slipping beyond the executive's control. The CEO stepped to the podium, voice firm. That's enough. This meeting is suspended. Everyone, please return to your departments. We'll address these concerns appropriately. As people reluctantly began filing out, he turned to me. I hope you're satisfied with the disruption you've caused. I didn't cause this disruption, I replied. I just removed the fear that kept it hidden. He gestured to a side door. My office, now. In the CEO's corner office, Vernon paced like a caged animal while Eden, Damon, Parker, and Lena sat stiffly on the sofa. The CEO took his seat behind the desk, motioning for me to sit opposite him. What do you want, Miss Kapoor? Really want? Beyond humiliating my leadership team, I met his gaze directly. I want change. By destroying what we've built? By fixing what's broken? Vernon stopped pacing. This is ridiculous. She's not a stakeholder in our company. She has no right to demand anything except rent, if we decide to stay. The CEO raised a hand to silence him. Let's be practical. Finding suitable space for 300 employees in 30 days is nearly impossible. The disruption would be devastating to our operations and client relationships. I'm aware, I said. Then perhaps we can reach an agreement that serves both our interests. I nodded. I'm listening. We need time. A 6-month extension, at minimum. In return, we're willing to pay a premium on the current lease rate. Money isn't the issue, I replied. Then what is? I looked around at the faces watching me, the people who had dismissed and underestimated me for years, who had seen me as nothing but a convenient stepping stone. Accountability, I said simply. Vernon snorted. Here we go again, with the revenge fantasy. No fantasy, I corrected. Reality, I have a proposal. I removed a folder from my bag and placed it on the desk. Inside is a new lease agreement, 6 months, as you requested, with an option to extend if certain conditions are met. The CEO opened the folder, scanning the document. His eyebrows rose. These conditions are extensive. They're necessary. He continued reading, his expression growing increasingly troubled. You want Vernon and Damon removed from the company? A complete audit of all projects for the past 5 years? Implementation of new attribution and promotion policies. This is unprecedented interference. Think of it as corrective action, I suggested. The price of poor management. Vernon lurched forward. This is blackmail. No, I replied calmly. This is consequence. The CEO set down the document. Even if I wanted to accept these terms, the board would never approve such interference. They might if they understood the alternative. I reached for my phone, pulling up an email. This morning, I received an inquiry from your largest competitor, Prism Digital. They're very interested in leasing this space should Zencor vacate. I watched comprehension dawn on their faces. You wouldn't, Eden whispered. Business involves difficult decisions, I replied, echoing the phrase Vernon had used countless times when cutting corners or dismissing concerns. The CEO studied me carefully. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I've had 5 years to plan. Vernon slammed his hand on the desk. This is insane. We can't let her dictate who works here. Actually, the CEO said slowly, we might have to. What? The board meeting yesterday wasn't just about the building situation. It was also about the Sterling acquisition falling through, about our declining innovation metrics, about the troubling pattern of talent leaving for competitors. He looked at Vernon. They were already asking questions about leadership. Vernon's face paled. Richard, you can't be serious. After everything I've done for this company, what have you done exactly? The CEO, Richard, asked. Because based on what I heard downstairs, I'm beginning to wonder how much credit you've taken for others' work. For the first time, Vernon seemed at a loss for words. Richard turned back to me. I'll need to review these conditions thoroughly with legal. Some may need adjustment. I'm open to reasonable discussion, I said. But the core requirements are non-negotiable. He nodded slowly. I understand. As I stood to leave, Vernon stepped into my path. You think you've won, don't you? That this little power play fixes everything? No, I replied. I think this is just the beginning of fixing a broken system, one that you helped break. You have no idea what it takes to build something like Zencor. The sacrifices, the hard decisions. I know exactly what it takes, I said quietly. I've watched for 5 years. I've contributed for 5 years. I've learned for 5 years. Mostly how not to lead. His eyes narrowed. You'll fail. People like you always do. Perhaps, I acknowledged. But I'll fail on my own terms, not because someone pushed me down to climb higher. 3 days later, I stood in my new office on the 65th floor, watching the city awaken below. My phone buzzed with a text from Artie. Board approved the revised agreement. Vernon and Damon out. Full audit proceeding. New policies being drafted. Congratulations. I set the phone down, emotions swirling. This wasn't just revenge, it was restoration. A rebalancing of scales too long tipped against people like me, those with ideas but without connections, those with talent but without pedigree, those who worked twice as hard for half the recognition. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Hector entered with a maintenance update, followed by Tara with the completed fire inspection report. The building passed inspection, Tara announced. All systems now exceed code requirements. And the elevator maintenance is complete, Hector added. All 65 floors operating perfectly. I smiled. Thank you both. After they left, I turned back to the window. In the reflection, I could see the empty desk behind me, the office that had once belonged to Vernon. Tomorrow, I would meet with Zencor's remaining leadership to begin implementing the changes required by our agreement. Next week, I would review applications for the new Chief Ethics Officer position I'd insisted they create. And in the coming months, I would watch as a toxic culture slowly transformed into something better. Not perfect, but better. All because I'd climbed 65 floors when ordered to. All because they never imagined I owned the building they treated so carelessly. All because they underestimated what I was capable of. I pressed my palm against the cool glass, feeling the solidity of what I'd built. Not just ownership of a building, but a foundation for change, for myself and for others. Revenge wasn't just about making Vernon and others like him suffer consequences. It was about creating space for something new to grow in the aftermath. And as I turned from the window to begin my day's work, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 5 years at Zencor. Possibility. Unlimited. Soaring possibility. Not because I'd climbed to the top, but because I'd changed what happened once I got there. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated or overlooked, tap that like button. Subscribe for more stories about moments when everything changes in an instant. I'd love to hear in the comments about a time when you discovered your own power in an unexpected way. Remember, sometimes the longest climbs lead to the most breathtaking views. And sometimes, those who force you to take the stairs have no idea you own the building.